I meant to do it is not an adequate excuse for not doing it. My intent was to complete it. However, I did not, but my intent should count.
Yeah, and intent is 9/10 of the law.
No.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 384 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Well, hello, David.
How is you?
Well, cruising into the beginning of the holiday madness.
I know. Aren't you just super excited for everything that this weekend will hold?
I am not one of those people that gets all excited about the holidays. It's never been my gig.
Yeah. To me, I don't know, maybe I'm the bah humbug guy, but all the stress around it.
Yeah.
It's like, I really want to look forward to it. And I want to look forward to spending time with family and the get-togethers. But it's like, I've got to go out and buy gifts for people that I don't like any other time of year. I got to, fix this food and go eat somebody else's food that I don't like either. And it's stressful, man.
Yeah, why can't we just say we're all going to get together for dinner? And then you make sure you do that and you spread it out over several weeks to try to see everybody. And you don't have to decorate and you don't have to buy gifts and you don't,
Yeah.
I'm in, but it's all that other stuff.
Well, we've since, because everybody in my family is older now, so the newest generation is just now coming along. So, all the kids now are in their 20s for the most part. Mm-hmm. So what we've started doing and been doing for a little while is we don't give gifts really to each other. We just all bring a gift, like a $20 gift.
Yeah.
And then we, play some game and everybody leaves with a gift that, they probably didn't want, but hey, nobody bought it for them anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's fun what you get in those. I mean, my family did that for a while and, you could get a case of motor oil.
Yeah. But the funny thing is you're surprised at what people end up fighting over.
Oh, I know.
It's like,
I know.
You
bring some lotto tickets.
Oh yeah.
It's a hot commodity.
It is. And I tell you, I must tell you the story of the year that we did that with lottery tickets. And I had bought the scam tickets, that they're all winners. And that was my gift. Now, what I did was, after they got them and everything, they scratched them off and they thought they won. And unfortunately, it was my cousin who at the time was like 15. So she's going ballistic. She won like $500,000.
Oh, geez.
And she's going ballistic. And so I had to tell her that it was a joke. And she lost it. She cried the rest of the night. She was so distraught.
You just can't hurt people like that, David.
But I gave her $20 in cash. That was the gift amount anyway. So I gave her the cash, and which was what my intentions were. But she did not think that was funny.
No.
Oh boy. But anyway, speaking of things that aren't funny, but yet will be fun. Privacy and security boot camps coming up in March.
Yeah. Yep. Get out there. Seating is limited. Learn all about it. We're cutting these videos where you can hear different theories from all of us on what we think we're going to say, but
that's liable to change.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is between now and then, there's going to be other major breaches and all this other stuff. And so we're never at a loss of content. Never. Yeah.
We can be at a loss of motivation some days, but not loss of content.
And usually it's not the motivation. It's too many squirrels running through the office.
Which we already had to work on today because you had a new idea of a product and we both then went down the rabbit hole together.
I kept telling you no, and you kept trying to pull me down the rabbit hole.
No, I would ask a question, you would answer it, and then there we would go. And then you'd say, no, we can't do this. Look away. Which, yes, that is true. We cannot do that. As Carla has said many times, she has figured out that you and I are idea people, not implementers.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. So
yes,
she nailed that one. So anyway, if you're interested in the PriceSec Bootcamp, go to pricesecbootcamp.com to learn more. And, it's coming up quick. So get tickets.
Yeah. You can book your room in Louisville, Kentucky, and also, book your seat in boot camp. So there's a lot of cool stuff. Looking forward to meeting y'all there.
That's right. We might be having some surprises.
Oh, there's going to be some surprises I already know.
Speaking of surprises, yes. George, I know you're listening. Surprise. Yeah. Thank you, dude.
Yeah. And I'm not giving David his. I know it cost a lot of money to ship all of that. And I appreciate you sending me both of them.
Yeah. So George has been to our boot camp at least once.
Yeah, he's a friend of the podcast from way back. Thank you very much, George, for our care package, and your letter provided so much comfort to me. We'll leave it at that.
Yep. Yeah.
And shout out to my little wine buddy from the other night. She'll know who it is. Won't go down that, but it was a podcast listener that was at a wine tasting the other night. She's like, I know that voice.
That's funny though, because when you and I, sometimes we'll go to these healthcare conferences together or something like that, and we don't walk around with our name tag about the podcast or anything like that, but we'll be carrying on the conversation, and sometimes you'll see people turn around and look, and you can tell like they're like,
both
wait a
of
minute,
us, yeah,
wait a minute, I know those voices. It's funny.
All right, we better get this done, buddy.
Yeah, let's do it. So today we're going to be talking about the OCR Recognized Security Practices Guidance that recently came out.
It was a video.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't, send out a memo. Nick Easters took the time. Bless his heart. He can sit there and read those scripts. You and I are not script people.
Nope. No,
definitely not me. I need some bullets, and I can't follow exactly the script. Not without turning it into an event.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's free form.
Yeah, we freestyling, but
which always gets me in trouble.
I know, right? But so anyway, we'll have this. There'll be a link. We'll probably have it embedded on the show notes page. So you can go see it for yourself. Don't take our word for it, please. If you're going to be in charge of this stuff, you can take our word for it, but we really wish that you would go listen and hear these points on your own. But we're going to take you through everything they said. So our entire episode is a HIPAA say what episode.
Good job.
Yeah, I kind of got it there. I love that they are very clear in the very beginning. This presentation is intended to educate HIPAA-regulated entities on the categories of recognized security practices and how entities may demonstrate implementation. I couldn't even get through it without taking a breath. One sentence. But they also point out the purpose of the amendment is to incentivize, which we've said from the beginning is the carrot, not the stick, the regulated industry to improve their cybersecurity by implementing recognized security practices. OCR will only consider the implementation of recognized security practices as a mitigating factor in security rule investigations and audits. So don't try coming to them with a big privacy problem and show them your recognized security practices. Here we got recognized security practices. Yeah, but you're not giving your patients their records in time.
Yeah, maybe we should have recognized privacy practices.
Oh no, let's don't go down. Oh, that you're talking about a rabbit hole. It's complicated. There is a privacy framework that connects to a NIST privacy framework that connects to the NIST cybersecurity framework. And, I'm already struggling with that enough.
Well,
Okay.
it is something that we should point out to say that if you're not in healthcare, now, of course, this is not HIPAA. This is something completely different. We're talking about 405D, hiccup, and all that. But if you're not in the healthcare business at all, like maybe you're an IT guy, something like that, following these recognized security practices will absolutely help your business.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. Regardless of the size, type, or complexity, you could find things to follow to CYA on the whole cybersecurity thing. Okay, so definitely go listen yourself, but I got some bullets, and then I took the questions that were submitted in the request for information back in June. I took those questions, and we're going to cover those as well, but the high points, they're either saying recognized security practices or RSPs.
Mm-hmm.
And RSPs, I already tried to say that like 100 times in the beginning. And that's why we use RecSec. Because,
Yeah.
Anyway, recognized security practices, we say RecSec, RSPs, but they are using that term. And, it's not public law 116, blah, blah, blah. And he begins it, taking you through the whole amendment. What's the NIST CFF? And he mentions the IPDR.
It's Peter.
Telling you the different categories: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover under NIST. And then HICCUP explains that it's a main guide, and then the 2 technical volumes. And then goes into the other options that it has. And I've heard a lot of questions and discussions on this. And they use the phrase explicitly recognized by statute or regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires special reference. So if you're going to use some besides those 2, then you need to make sure that whatever it is, you have a lawyer involved, and most of the lawyers where I've asked about it, I'm like, would you rather your people do this, or would you rather them use one of these others? And they're like, it's a whole lot easier to point to what's already in the statute. Now, it doesn't mean you can't use the others, but the others map to NIST CSF, which it does get into that discussion.
I say take the path of least resistance, because there's already enough resistance as it is.
Exactly. And they do address the other several different ways. We already know, we started seeing this, we had already started seeing it on request last year. And they do mention that they started asking for it on their OCR data request. And now we see it on anything that comes in where they're requesting data that relates to security rule. It's always asking, and lawyers are always saying, can you show me that they're doing recognized security practices? And I'm like, I'm having trouble showing you they're doing HIPAA. So, let me do my thing. But they then get into, because it's asking you to demonstrate you have implemented recognized security practices.
Demonstrate.
And that you have implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do. There were several really quotes that sounds like this may have happened a few times. Quote, this is quote, plans to implement RSPs at a future date is not evidence of implementation. Yep. So don't just say we're going to do it. Now, we can say that, but don't think that you're going to get the benefit of it by doing it.
Yeah,
you have to be doing what,
planning
fully integrated.
Planning to lose weight is the same thing as losing weight, right?
Yeah. Planning to clean your room is the same thing as actually cleaning your room. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take care of that tomorrow. It's always tomorrow. Free beer tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's always tomorrow. The other thing, a quote, is merely having written recognized security practices, actual implementation of the practices is insufficient.
Ooh.
And then it says implementation means the practices have been disseminated to necessary workforce members and the practices are actually being used by the entity. A binder, and this sounded so familiar. A binder of RSPs sitting on a bookshelf doesn't demonstrate that they have been implemented.
Okay. So you can't say you're planning to do it, but you also can't say we've moved past planning and we have it documented that we're going to do it.
Well, so many people, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we do all of HIPAA. And then, we always have the fun moment of them trying to find their HIPAA manual, their security manual, and they open it up and moths fly out.
Yeah.
Creaks.
Yeah. I love those. It's like, yeah, we got HIPAA covered.
Okay. Show me your risk analysis. Huh? What?
Yeah.
I had one of those.
I had somebody ask me recently, do we need to do a risk analysis? And I'm like, if you're asking me, then the answer is yes.
Yeah. it's just that. Yeah. And then another quote on this line was, recognized security practices should be implemented throughout the enterprise. For example, it is not sufficient to implement RSPs for one workstation, one application, or only for a narrow slice of the entity's organization.
But Donna, that's how these other things work, like PCI and.
Yep. It's not the same, Grandpa.
Yep.
So I think that we've talked repeatedly about the importance of documentation, and that it's not just policies and procedures that you put in a binder. You actually have to know what's in them and prove that you're following them and that people in the enterprise or your organization actually know how to do it. Yeah. But that's no different than HIPAA.
No. And what gets me is when I have a conversation with people that, they're quote unquote doing HIPAA, and I'll say, well, okay, great. Can you prove that you have these things implemented? And they look at you kind of crazy, like, how am I supposed to do that? And I'm like, well, we're talking about security rules. So hopefully your IT person or your MSP or whoever's doing your technology is providing you with this documentation that you need, or at least a portion of it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, we've never gotten documentation. Well, that's a problem.
Or they say, don't worry, we've got it. Okay. Are they going to be there for you 5 years from now when you need it?
Yeah. So it's crazy. And that, they'll say something like, but they do work with hundreds of dentist offices. I don't care that they do that. If they're not providing you the information you need to prove you're doing, then what does it, it's not going to save you.
No, all the kids are doing it. Never got me a pass.
Yeah. Or in our case, all the kids are not doing it.
There you go. Oh, but they did then. This was an important part about, we've talked about this with some of the folks that we help and the attorneys that we work with, and they make a very specific point, which means we need to push this harder, and we haven't. So listen up, team. Yes, they're required to listen every week. Regulated entities are also asked to notify OCR of a change in status in the implementation of its RSPs, and if there is additional, new, or updated evidence of RSP implementation, the regulated entity would like OCR to consider. Okay, so there's a whole section they talk about here, and what they're saying is, if you've responded to us and then we haven't gotten back to you, but you've made progress, go ahead and send us your progress, your proof that maybe you didn't have the proof, but now you found it, you tracked it down, you've added things, you've updated things, You said you were planning on doing it. Let's show you're actually doing it.
Yeah. You found somebody to backdate it.
Yeah, there's always that. The answer to all of you entities that get that question is no. No. Cannot backdate your risk analysis. Cannot backdate, documentation that,
But
Anyway.
but I intended to do one.
I meant to do it.
Yeah. I planned it.
I meant to do it is not an adequate excuse for not doing it. My intent was to complete it. However, I did not, but my intent should count.
Yeah. And intent is 9/10 of the law.
No.
Don't worry that way.
So they did then go into what would they consider documentation of to demonstrate implementation. And it's similar to what we already see today in these requests that we've dealt with. There's a long list, and I think it's interesting that, well, let's just go through this list.
Okay.
Policies and procedures regarding the implementation and use of RSPs.
Okay.
Got a policy and procedure? Does it actually say you're going to do it? Does it say which one you're going to do? Does it say how you're going to do it? RSP implementation project plans and meeting notes.
What?
This is why I have everybody write it down. We've started doing a RecSec assessment, and we're saying, if this is planned, when is it planned? What is your... And we always joke about you need to document that you're going to document and how you're going to document. And then you need to document in the meeting what you said about documenting the meetings, and then make sure that the documentation is complete on how you document your meetings. That would be meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Diagrams and narrative detail of RSP implementation and use.
Oh, cool. We get to have diagrams.
Pictures. I always like to do mine in pictures. Then
I can just see everybody having a meeting and passing out crayons.
Okay.
Speaking of crayons, training materials.
There you go. So if you're doing this, you need to make sure you're training people on doing it. How about that? Mm-hmm. Application screenshots and reports showing the implementation and use. We ask people to give us screenshots of settings and applications, and they roll their eyes.
Mm.
Well, we shouldn't have to do that. Says who? Because right here it says, yeah, you shouldn't have to do it if you never have to prove that you were doing this. And that's the thing, particularly with technical people, is hard for them to grasp, is this is not a question of whether or not you're doing your job. This is a question that, can I prove you're doing your job for the next 6 years? Can I prove you did it today?
Yep.
So don't get all whatever it is and take it personal. It ain't about you. It's so far beyond you.
Yeah. Don't get hissy-fitted.
Then I thought this was interesting. Vendor contracts and statements of work regarding the implementation.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So I've hired these people, and you can't just say, I hired somebody to do recognized security practices. It's got to be a little bit more than that. You got to say, here's what I have hired them to do. This is in the statement of work, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, include dates that support implementation and use for the previous 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And those are basically the same kind of things and questions that they would ask. They have been asking. Those are the same kind of things they expect you to show that you're doing the HIPAA work, not just the RSPs. They're saying, this is what we would look for your RSPs. Guess what? That's exactly what they look for everything else on the security rule.
Yeah. I mean, and this is not extra work. I mean, if you're looking at it that way, as we're talking, you're like, oh, I already got to do HIPAA. Now I got to do this. No, it's the same, but different.
I know. It's eating your broccoli. Write it down. You're already doing a lot of this stuff. Write it down and make it formal.
Yep.
So that was pretty much what Nick covered and all of the general discussion. And then he gave you tons of links of how to get to the information, how to communicate with OCR, email addresses, phone numbers, snail mail even. They're like, talk to us. So there's plenty of ways. Again, go see for yourself. It'll be entertaining. But then he gets into a few specific questions they are electing to cover. And while some of it seems redundant, well, there's a Robin Williams line. In the dictionary under redundant, it says see redundant. I was a huge fan of his. I miss his view of the world was always perfectly off kilter for me. So first question was, what constitutes implementation throughout the enterprise? Servers, workstations, APIs? What are you looking for? Kind of said the same thing over, but he expanded on it a bit. Regulated entities seeking to have OCR consider evidence of implementation of RSPs in accordance with the High-Tech Amendment should implement them throughout their enterprise and present evidence showing adequate demonstration that the RSPs have been implemented. For example, on servers, workstations, mobile devices, APIs, and any other device or software as applicable to the RSP implementation. And then it goes into maintaining an accurate inventory of IT assets can assist a regulated entity in ensuring its implementation of recognized security practices is truly enterprise-wide. Indeed, many, if not most, recognized security practices include IT asset inventories as elements. 405D includes it in inventory practices for all organizations of all sizes. It's in the NIST cybersecurity framework. It's in everything. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're saying is, and he goes on and gives some more things. If the recognized security practices say you're going to have an inventory, how about showing us your inventory?
Yeah.
But, he did do an extensive discussion in that but it's basically, if it says use MFA, then show you're actually using it, where, when it was implemented, how you implemented it, and how you're making sure it's okay. That sounds what we've talked about before.
This is all new stuff to me.
Yes, I know we laugh at each other, but really it is us talking to each other and we're just sharing it with you, just so you know.
Yeah, you're just in the room.
It's much weirder when we stop recording. And they do, here's some more. OCR expects evidence of actual implementation.
They said it again.
Very clear. Next question, will mappings to the NIST cybersecurity framework be acceptable? Now, they already talked about the other thing several times. And based on the discussion, you can go listen to it yourself, but they don't want you to go, well, we implemented CIS and here's its mapping to NIST. We're good to go. Nay, nay.
But we're high-tech certified.
No. High trust, no. What they're saying is that they want to see proof that what you're doing corresponds to NIST. So what we've told people from the get-go is that if you're going to use those, make sure in your mapping that you can reference it by the NIST guidelines as well as whatever you're using. Now, your lawyer is still going to have to argue that if you're not matching it to NIST enough or HICCUP or whatever, then you still got to make that argument that's adequate. But you need to, don't make this hard. Don't give them your map to NIST and say you're good because you can prove you're doing those. What you want to do is say, here is our NIST implementation based on our use of this other thing. But still give them the documentation as if you're using NIST. Don't make it hard.
Can I say I got a seal on my site?
And that's my documentation.
Because I wouldn't have this seal.
I got a sticker. I got a certificate. I printed it out myself.
I know. I got a certification.
There you go. But then he does again go into the same discussion of examples of what it would require to prove you're doing NIST, even with another thing that you're mapping to it. We would still expect to see contracts, statement of work, invoices, project plans, meeting notes, minutes, policies and procedures, system and application screenshot, configuration and log files, diagrams, narrative details of implementations. As previously noted, these examples are not exhaustive, merely illustrated. So don't think that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Now, this next question, David, this is one that I have brought up repeatedly. Like in the very beginning, the very first time we did it, it was, is this really a safe harbor? When this amendment was signed and we were talking about it the very first time, we used the phrase. But then I learned very quickly, and we have never used it again, that it is not safe harbor. The legal phrase safe harbor is not what this is. But people keep saying it. I've even had I was at HIMSS where somebody was talking about it as safe harbor, and I'm like, my lawyer people tell me not to use that term. That term is not the correct term. And they're like, well, it's okay. Everybody understands. I was like, no, they don't. No, they don't. No. Safe harbor is what proving you have an encrypted device that's lost. If you lose a device with PHI and you can prove it was encrypted, then you don't have to treat it like a breach. You don't have to report it, all of those things. It's immunity. It's all good. However, we have already said that recognized security practices is not a safe harbor.
Mm-hmm.
It does not give you immunity. It just merely provides another tool that OCR can use to evaluate if you're meeting your obligations.
Yeah, it's a mitigation tool.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're not responsible for potential security rule violations, privacy rule violations, breach notification violation. All the violations are still on the table. It's as a mitigating factor to the violations. So don't use safe harbor, please. Don't.
Yep. Just means you'll be better off with them than without them.
Yeah, and all the lawyers are like, aren't you doing recognized security practices? Well, I can my job is to advise. I advise that you do them. But the whole safe harbor thing, we got to make sure people don't get those two screwed up, because they are not. There are 2 named recognized security practices in the regulation. Are there others? Really? They threw this question out there because they can't believe people were asking it. Or go read the regulation. How about you do that? And then you have a better understanding. But they did say, we already talked, they're kind of like, look, the other, we said there is another. You may choose to make that argument, and we're opening to listening to your opinion. However, that does not mean we will actually agree with your opinion.
You can't use the David's recognized security practices.
These would also include what David told you last week.
Yeah.
As a recognized security. We should see if they will amend the amendment.
This is the abbreviated version.
Because David said.
Yeah.
But I did find it interesting that they said if OCR determines that another RSP qualifies as an RSP under the other category, according to the law, that they will look for ways to inform the public and the regulated industry through future notices, rulemaking, or guidance.
Well, that's nice of them.
Well, everybody's lined up going, make me count, make me count.
Yeah.
The ones that cost a lot of money, I'm sure they are.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just, instead of that, just show how you map? Everybody maps to NIST. If that you already mapped to NIST, just create a way to show them how to map their stuff and provide the documentation. Let's don't make it crazy.
But if you can't do hiccup, you ain't gonna be able to do the rest of it. So move on.
True that. Well, I mean, the whole thing about having hiccup in place and having it included in this amendment, I don't know, it raises up our work to a new level, and it certainly has forced us to, everybody's like, we got to take this so much more seriously now and make sure that we do all of these things because it's that important. It's no longer just, hey, this is what we think. So then the very last question, and this gets back to, I have a sticker. Will OCR rely on 1, self or third-party assessment reports, 2, artifacts such as corporate policy documents and vulnerability scans report based on specific OCR request, or 3, a combination of the two approaches to provide the evidence of recognized security practices? We've done this for so long. When we read a question like that, we're like, yeah, okay. And
try it, see how it works for you.
Yeah, go ahead. So OCR answered as one would expect. Had you've read these answers so many times, it's like, yeah, I can't write the legal things, but I can write. This is really what they're saying here. OCR neither limits nor prescribes the types of evidence or documents a regulated entity may submit to OCR for consideration that it has had RSPs in place for the previous 12 months. To the extent that the aforementioned, and right there, when you're using aforementioned, you got some legal stuff. Aforementioned types of evidence, self or third-party assessments, policies and procedures, vulnerability scans, can adequately demonstrate the implementation of RSPs, OCR will review and consider such evidence. So basically, I just told you what I want to see. And none of this changes. Don't get, I got a seal from so-and-so, so I'm done. They're like, nope, I want to see the proof that you've been doing it. Because, that seal is a point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time anything in HIPAA says you got to prove it for the last 12 months. So, no, but yes, but maybe, but no.
Yeah. Go ahead and give it a try.
Yeah.
But the main thing is you're doing it, you're implementing it, and you can prove it.
Yep.
It's
however you want.
Not hard, but people are going to make it that way. That's for sure.
Yeah. Don't think that just because you gave somebody a third-party report, that just means you did the report.
Yeah.
Right? You did the scan. Consider that evidence that you're doing the work, not the overall proof. It could be an element of it. But then he goes on to review that list of examples for the third or fourth time in this brief video.
Mm-hmm.
So, I made a list of what I thought the big takeaways were, and you haven't shot it down, so I guess we can go with it. The things I noticed. You got anything to add, or you want to start with the list? I mean,
yeah, I'm sure I'll ad lib something, but
okay. Number one, they're not kidding about the 12 months of proof.
What about 11 months?
Yeah, no. They're not. They're like, look, this is what the law says, and we're legal people. We follow the law, the letter of the law, as well as the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is not to penalize you for not doing it, but to encourage you to do more.
Yeah.
That's the spirit of the law. We will not penalize you. But if you are doing more, we're happy to see it. Show us. But the letter of the law says you got to show us 12 months of active use of these recognized security practices, which is why last year I've been trying to get people to do it. And they're all like, no, I'll deal with that later. 12 months.
Yeah.
12 months doesn't start when something goes wrong for it to be helpful. It'll only be helpful later.
When they have a data breach, they'll be like, man, I'm glad we started doing this last month. Now we can prove it. That's not going to help you.
And I plan to do it. No. But if you're 6 months into it and you can prove the 6 months, at least it's better than I can't prove any of it.
Yeah.
So, we're including a RecSec assessment as an option in all of our, you don't want to do it? Fine. We'll set it over here. But if you do want to do it, here you go. And it has the, we've got all the stuff built into our policies and procedures, and here's how you can do it. And, because I can't make them do that. That's not required by law. My job is to tell you what the law says. But I can give you the tools. That's it.
Yeah. Well, you can hand me a hammer. That don't mean I can build a birdhouse.
No, it doesn't. You need a few other things besides a hammer. The other thing is, if you are improving your recognized security practices implementation, like you're doing the work like you should be doing because you're under investigation and your lawyers are telling you don't ignore this, which nothing drives me more crazy than the ones where we help them and give them a plan and say, let us know if you need any help. We don't hear crap from them. They're like, we got this. All right. I gave you the policies and procedures that we helped you make all of your decisions. We gave you the tools. We gave you all of that. You never came back and asked for anything else. Then you get a new request and you're like, help me fill this out. Oh, what have you done?
Yeah.
It's no different than the last time, really. I know nothing. What have you done? But it is good to see that they want it ongoing. Continue to show the updates. I just had a meeting last week. Yeah, because today's Monday. I just had a meeting last week with some lawyers and working with, and they're the lawyers that are continually reminding our mutual client, yes, we've responded to OCR and you've done all these things and Cardin's working with you, but that does not mean now we're done. Not at all. So that reiterates it, but it also says to me, when we set those plans and it's somebody under investigation, set some milestones to send an update to OCR.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's voluntary, but they are going to ask about it. They're going to ask about it every time. And here's what I can tell you. If you are not choosing to do recognized security practices, you better have every T crossed and every I dotted in the rest of your HIPAA stuff. How do you think that's going to roll? We choose not to do that.
Yeah, because if you're doing HIPAA, you already should be doing most of recognized security practices.
One would think, basic cyber hygiene, that's part of it. Everything in there is really stuff you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say we're going to choose not to do this because we don't want to have to document it, this is what I kind of see. They don't want to have to document it. We don't want to invest the resources in the documentation. We better invest the resources in the HIPAA part.
Yep. Better do something.
You're just walking away. And the other thing is, if you're considering not doing it, you better check with your insurance provider and your lawyer. I strongly recommend that your business counsel review that. I have not seen any of the lawyers write an article about this amendment that they didn't say, we're recommending all of our clients do this.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Well, it's extra work is the answer. Well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do any of this. I didn't want to get up this morning, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them don't want to do just basic anything.
Right.
We run into this all the time. I mean, we had a client just not that long ago that's like, I need to cut my bill. What can I get rid of? I'm like, security? That's all you've got.
Really?
I mean, what are you going to get rid of?
What can I get rid of? Well,
yeah.
My job is to make sure the entire backbone of your business is operational at all times when you need it. I don't think you need me.
Yeah. I said, maybe you can cut out one of those out of the country trips a year. I don't know. Don't care.
Maybe that. That's a good idea. There's a lot of ways to deal with the requirements, but to just assume that we're in the same world we were always been in the early aughts, even the first half of the teens, but it is not the same world. We are so far removed from that with the connectivity that we have now.
Oh, if you hadn't changed what you've been doing since 2019.
Yeah.
Because there was I don't know, were you around when there was this massive shift in 2020? Does anybody remember that? I mean, things have changed. Just saying, some people might have missed it.
Preach it, brother.
Yeah.
But we will say we do recommend adopting recognized security practices. If you have already started down the path of NIST CSF or some of the others, go that route. If you have not, do yourself a favor. Evaluate the HIPAA approach first before going down the path of NIST, which is much more complex and a lot more challenging to do, certainly for a smaller medium enterprise. It is much harder. And that's why we've integrated a lot of the NIST stuff before there was even HIPAA. We've integrated HIPAA, all of those things to give that flexibility. But, David and I are kind of proud of HIPAA and the foundation it gives you. If you never have to grow beyond that, great. You're doing the right things, and we've got the resources continually coming out to help keep you there as long as you stay up to date, which is the 12-month thing. Please do it.
Yeah. I mean, we were HIPAA when HIPAA wasn't cool.
Okay, so this episode is our holiday gift to you.
That's right.
Yeah. Go make your plan for what you're going to do first quarter.
Yep. And if you need help with all this stuff, guess what? We have an entire boot camp for price sake.
That has a whole section that we discuss how to do this.
Yep. So show up to the boot camp. That will be a massive help to your privacy and security program to get you on the way to get this stuff done.
Great. Well, we can see I'm done. Great way to bring it back around, David.
Well, thank you, ma'am. All right, folks, that's our show for today. Remember to follow us and share us out to your favorite social media site and give us a rating and review. Or if you're like George, send us some stuff. We appreciate it. Remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.